ready to open up the coffers a little bit. Same thing with the Barnhart movement. I mean, that added almost $8 million, and that's not a lot of money, but it's some money. So those are good signs because, a few years ago, Illich was quoted as saying, I have the fire inside to compete. This is showing a little bit that maybe he does, and it wasn't just a bad taco.
But Brandon joins us in right now. Well, I know you were pretty ecstatic, and just get your thoughts before I'm going to go to another question after this, but I know what Mark and Chris think. We talked to Cody Saberhagen of The Athletic yesterday, so that's going to be part of the pod that will be kind of inserted in there. So, Brandon, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much all of us were pretty pleased with the deal overall. You guys have probably said most of it. The one thing that I think is particularly interesting is that he is another big steam shifted weight guy. I was all on the bandwagon with all that last off season. So he's another one of those guys who doesn't give up home runs. You're taking him out of the AL or the AL East, moving him into a lot bigger ballpark in an easier division to pitch in. I mean, even if we just leave Eduardo himself alone, just moving him into the new context should be pretty good for him. Obviously, he's got the ties to Juan Nieves, so he's got some comfort level going there, and I'm sure Chris Fetter will have a bunch for him. And yeah, I mean, it's just really nice to see the Tigers, make a commitment like this, because if you're going to make this commitment, you're probably going to have to make more. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to sign Eduardo Rodriguez and then, end up with Nico Goodrum at shortstop and, just adding some little bat somewhere. So yeah, I mean, it's also a sign, I think, to the fan base that, Chris Illich is going to be, to some extent true to his word. And now that the team is, trending on the upswing, he's going to start investing in it, and we'll just see how far that goes.
Yeah, and so speaking of how far it would go, today, I'll get started with you, Dave, on this. The infamous breakfast with Carlos Correa and AJ Hinch in California and Tigers Twitter, which is always amazing to me. Would this have been something newsworthy 20 years ago? I don't know. But it's just just because social media sometimes makes that the headline. But do you just take it as two people just having breakfast, or there's smoke, or where there's smoke, there's fire?
We start with me.
Oh no, Dave. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, look, I mean, they've got a relationship, right? So
right.
Even if it's nothing more than two friends catching up at the end of the baseball season, good on them. I got to believe that AJ Hinch is saying, hey, come along. You're a free agent, need a new home. Our owner now willing to spend, we've got a team. But, is Detroit a desired destination for Carlos Correa? I don't know. Are the Tigers willing to go 10 years and $300 or $320 million? That's a lot different than $77 million that they're, giving Rodriguez. But clearly this team needs to find a shortstop. So whether it's Correa or, Seager or Simeon or one of these guys, right? I mean, don't they need to come away from this period and this winter with an answer at shortstop? And, clearly Correa's at the top of that list, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point you bring up, Dave. They have to. I think we got Cody asked us this question yesterday about whether it would be a successful offseason without a shortstop. I mean, they've made progress. They got Tucker Bernhardt and Rodriguez, but I think if you don't come away with a shortstop for a team that was minus 17 in defensive runs saved last year, then I think you start with the same scenario of Castro, and I would think it would be kind of a failure. But Mark, I know this is one of those things probably 20 years ago you're asking yourself, is this really a news story? But yeah, I personally I like Simeon myself, but if they get Correa, because I'm just cynical by nature. But I don't know, Mark, what did you think of this story today?
I loved it. I mean, if he wanted to catch up about what was up and ask him how soon his wife was going to deliver a baby and how did his season go, he could have called him. So
yeah.
He was asking him to be the godfather.
Yeah, I have two comments about this. One, I'm sure that the nature of the discussion between two guys who know each other really well, considering that Carlos Correa broke in under AJ Hinch, was how much money you want. What's it going to take to get a deal done? How can we structure it? Are you serious about it? And are you willing to come here? The fact that they ended up there for 4 hours or more, obviously the answer was, sure, I'm serious about it. I'm willing to come there. Here's the terms and conditions, and what's it going to look like if I get there? How much help you going to, what's going to be around me if I decide to come, and how soon is there going to be help? Talk to me about it. You've seen it. I haven't. Okay. Because remember, 2 of their best players haven't set foot in the major leagues yet, and he only knows them by reputation, and Hinch knows them a little better than that. And I'm sure those are the kind of things that were being discussed, because he's not coming here just to get paid. He can go get paid a lot of places nicer than this. Okay. So yeah, I was pretty damn encouraged that they're having this discussion, and they're having it now, because I think there's a sense of urgency to try to get this done before December 1st, because guys, look, December 1st, the doors close, and you don't know when the doors are opening again. They might not open till February 26th. Okay. And then it's going to be a free for all. So they might not open again until April 14th. We don't know. So there's a lot of really nasty things that need to be negotiated between these two parties. And one party has been taking the other party's lunch money for a couple of different collective bargaining agreements. So there's some urgency to get this deal done soon. And the fact that they were there for a pretty long time.
There are places you can eat lunch where, you know, people can't take your picture that easily. They were trying to keep it on the down low. They weren't trying very hard.
But,
yeah, and not to mention, when you get in that 4-hour category of a restaurant, that's when the waiter or waitress stopping by and give you that refill of water, because by hour 2 they're done, because they know full well they're either the shift's over or they're like, oh, these guys are gonna be here for a while.
Mhm.
I'll let them be. That's that weird, like, I've been in a diner when I was younger, 3 or 4 hours talking to my friends and just BSing. That looked like it could be anything, but it was really weird to see that too, because all of a
When
sudden
it's Carlos Correa and AJ Hinch, though, you just think like the tip is going to be good. You guys take all the time you need. You know, start checking out their jewelry. Like, yeah, these guys are good.
Or even like the internet exclusive, like, I mean, we would put a story together today on Motor City Bengals that Danielle was able to trace his Instagram, that he was following Badu and Candelario and Miguel. And I thought, to me, that's like I'm saying, like, I showed my age, I'm like, wait, that's, and then I'm like, thought about it, I'm like, okay, well, does that mean anything? And it's like, I'm like putting together like a mystery here, but I
will say,
go ahead, Chris.
Just if I can interject, it feels very much like this is almost like a college football recruitment. Like they're bringing in everybody. I feel like the other players involved, and I don't think this was the first meeting between Correa and people from the Tigers either. So I think like they're being very, very kind of public with making him a priority, and I think that's unusual for the Tigers, but also kind of fun for fans, because it seems like there's a lot of smoke here. So, who knows if he'll pick the Tigers, but the Tigers are certainly making it known that they want him.
I'll bring up 2 encouraging things. How many teams you really think in the Carlos Correa sweepstakes? And I want you to understand, as much as I think the Dodgers are in the sweepstakes, they already are paying one guy $33 million to play right field. How many $33 million guys you want to have? Okay.
They also have an elite shortstop already, too.
Yeah, we talked about this last night. He's pretty elite. He was pretty terrible in the playoffs, and it wasn't the first time. So, yeah. And you got to make a decision whether you want to keep him or not. Okay.
Well, if you want to trade him, I'm interested.
The other really interesting thing, and I say this tongue in cheek, but you should take it pretty serious. You want to know what life in Detroit is like? Call up your friend Justin Verlander and ask him. I'm sure he knows Justin pretty damn well, and I'm sure Justin could give him a pretty good idea what it is to spend time and
Mhm.
live in Detroit. Who
Yep,
better to?
talking about Birmingham schools and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think his kids are going to school for 4 or 5 years. This one's just going to pop out here.
It's
But
a long-term deal, though.
it is. You guys have been over to the backyard over at my house, and it's not a terrible part of town. So, yeah, I there are a lot of good places and a lot of good things to do between April and November in Detroit. So,
Well, the only thing I'll say to that, though, is that now that Verlander's back in Houston, I imagine if he's talking to him, it's about bringing him back to Houston.
I don't think there's any doubt about it, but I just don't see Jim Crane giving him $325 million. I just don't.
Yeah,
not-
I don't
it's
really
not
see
in his-
that necessarily either. Yeah.
Yeah, and the situation involved in that too, because I mean I think the Yankees have talked about it too. This is the part of free agency I don't like. It's all this kind of cliche talk. I mean, at least they're not speaking like riddles like Scott Boras it's been, but you got to look at that. So the top third question I want to ask, and I'll start with Dave again, is do the Tigers need an outfielder for Akil Baddoo, Robbie Grossman? They seem like they're set, but I still think they need another left-handed stick, a little bit of power. Dave, what are your thoughts about the outfield? And the outfield did a really good job this year, despite everything that's been kind of thrown at them. But do you think they need another bat in the outfield?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that would be ideal. But then, how quick does Green come? And what does the farm, and at what point? I mean, do you force feed? Do you let them continue to nurture? Do you make him prove himself at that? I mean, I guess that's part of the equation, right? But yes, I mean more is better, and I'd love to have another left-hand bat in that lineup.
Chris, what about you? I mean, you and Uper and I have talked about this numerous times, but it seems like there's been reports now that they're interested in to add an outfielder.
I keep saying it. They were a 77-win team. There's areas to improve all across the field. If there's somebody out there that they like that they think is an upgrade, they should target them. I don't care what position it is. I do think Grossman was solid, but he's only signed for another year. I don't know if they're going to extend him that long. And you do have Green coming up, but beyond that, it's kind of a small army of. You got Baddoo. We don't really know for sure what Baddoo is. He was super exciting this year. You got Baddoo, Hill, Cameron. Guys you're not super convinced about. So if you can bring somebody else in who is going to be an upgrade, I'm all for it.
Nick Plummer.
I don't know if he'd be.
I'm sorry. Did someone say Nick Plummer?
I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll start with you, Brandon, before I get to Trevor, and then Uper. You're in agreement with us about this. I think we talked about this before.
As far as like need, I mean, that's what it comes down to. The Tigers don't need an outfielder necessarily. It would be nice. It'd be nice to add another left-handed bat, like Dave said. And frankly, the outfield defense wasn't very good. The team needs a defensive upgrade, kind of all over. I mean, the whole theory behind Chris Better is, not just striking people out, but pitching to the defense and having those things coordinated really, really well. You just got another guy who gets a lot of ground balls in Eduardo Rodriguez, but that's still a lot of territory out in center field. And I mean, if you have enough bat at the corners, I'm okay putting Derek Hill and hoping that Akil Baddoo improves defensively out there. I still think there's a fairly good chance that Baddoo will get better defensively. He has some problems route running. Didn't necessarily read balls that well off the bat. But, we talked about how long he was off and away from the game as far as hitting. But, he didn't have very much, experience playing center field in real pro games and tracking balls like that. So, and he's playing in one of the biggest parks in baseball now. So, there's reason to think he'll get better out there. He is obviously fast enough to play a really good center field. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a luxury at this point. But that kind of goes to, philosophically, do you think the Tigers should do everything they need to do this offseason? Or do you leave yourself, some room to maneuver at the trade deadline? And, after you see kind of what you got with Green and Torkelson this year, I'm just a little wary of going too hard in terms of either payroll or starting to trade prospects right yet. We've seen the Padres go absolutely ham to try to win a World Series the past 2 years, and they've chewed up their farm system. They haven't done anything in terms of the postseason. So you can get yourself behind the 8 ball really quick from a situation that looked fantastic 2 seasons ago. So I mean, not that the Padres are doomed or anything, but you have to be careful about pushing in too hard too fast. You got to kind of take your time, see what else might be required, and once the CBA is decided, I do imagine there's just going to be a flurry of kind of average veterans signing cheap deals as quickly as possible to know where they're going to go, so they can get their life in order. So at that point, I'm looking through the bargain bin as far as an outfielder goes, I guess is what I would break it down to.
Trevor, what about you?
I think the Tigers should sign Nick Plummer.
I agree with you on that too.
Well, he's a left-handed bat. He can play he's good at defense. He can play all 3 outfield positions. No, but
in the pride of Brother Rice,
Yeah, exactly. He's a local kid. I'm with Chris. I think that if there's talent out there, sign it. The pieces will fit. There's lots of room for it. Obviously you want to look at the farm system. Shortstop has no answer. There is some answer in the outfield, but my worry for the Tigers outfield right now is that you have Robbie Grossman and then maybe potentially just a bunch of number 4 type outfielders. Badu's second half of the year scares me. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what to expect from him offensively. None of us do, obviously, but his walks went down. His strikeouts, I think, went down too. It seemed like he was just being more aggressive. It wasn't paying as many dividends. So I just worry that you're going to, not have a decent enough outfield. You're just going to be rotating through guys who are number 4 types. Same thing in the rotation. Maybe depth is good. I'm just going to throw it out there. If you want to be a good team, you need depth.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. And Uper, I know you're going to say Sterling Marte, but was there anybody else that stood out to you?
Well, yeah,
as well, if possible.
I always think money is best spent at the top of the market, and he's the best outfielder out there. And if you're going to add an outfielder, go get the best one. And I know that's not always feasible, but really it probably depends on what they do at shortstop. And, if they don't come through on Correa and they end up signing, for instance, Chris Taylor or Trevor Story for less money, maybe they can allocate to the outfield. I don't think it's a very good outfield right now. I think you have Riley Green and a bunch of guys. I'm less excited about Robbie Grossman than a lot of people. It was his career year, and it was a fine enough season, but it was a career year at 32. I mean, what's he going to do going forward? I count on very little. He's basically a 4th outfielder on a good team to me. But what it really boils down to is, do they plan to contend in 2022? If they do, I think they absolutely have to upgrade in the outfield. If they feel it's more important to get things ready for 23 and beyond and get their shortstop in place for the long-term future, then I can see them passing on the outfield and living with the crew they've assembled right now.
Yeah, I think the outfield's going to be perhaps another patchwork job, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just I look at Chris and I went to a lot of games this year, and we've talked about this. And Trevor, same thing. They don't really have a lot of minor league outfield depth right now, too. If there's nothing beyond, I venture to say Double-A in West Michigan, where you see, Erie and West Michigan had a couple guys who they can go back and forth with, but outside of, Brian Packard had some back issues, and we thought he was going to play first, and he ended up playing the outfield. Austin Murr was a good story, but again, not a lot of power, but he can hit really well. But again, we don't know, so it is kind of a slight drop off. So I think if the Tigers can address it with another veteran to plug it in until some of their outfield talent and system comes through. And speaking of roster crunch, tomorrow is the deadline for the 40-man roster, and I'm gonna give everybody one person that they think they will be able to see in a Tigers uniform next year. And I'll start with you, Brandon.
Ooh.
I know I'm putting you on a spot there. It's a tough question. And again, this is a question because they have to make some tough decisions tomorrow.
Boy, I'm trying to think if there's really anybody that I really either think will or will be in a Tigers uniform next year. I could probably do this better in reverse, looking through the list, but I got nothing at the moment. Give it to
okay.
Pass it on.
I'll pass it. Okay, I'll pass it on to Chris. Do you got one in mind?
So what you mean? Somebody who's not currently on the 40-man, or
Like,
No,
yeah, they have to make a decision on. They have to make a decision,
Oh.
or who is on the roster.
or cut somebody from the 40.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I do think where Mango said Nico. I do think they're going to part ways with Nico. I don't know if they're going to do it right away. I would say that it's likely that Grayson Griner is going to be cut from the 40-man. And I don't know. I mean, this is not going out on a limb, but we're going to see Joey Wentz at some point next year. I think one of the things I was just writing a piece right now that the average MLB team used 14 starters this year for at least one start. So we're looking at the Tigers as like we have like 5 or 6 starters right now that we know of. So they're going to bring up some guys from the minors, and so whoever's on the 40-man is going to get a shot.
All right, and Dave, what about you?
I would say Nico probably, especially if they address the hole at shortstop, and whether it's him or somebody else, I got to believe, given Rule 5 and things like that. I mean, don't you want to have some room, some flexibility to be able to make a move going forward if there's somebody out there? So whether it's him or somebody, I think you want to at least give yourself that flexibility.
Okay, Trevor, what about you?
People I think might get cut. Clearly Tucker Barnhart. No. I think everybody kind of hit the nail on the head with a few of these names, so I don't know if I have anybody else really to add. Protected, maybe I have an idea, but cut, not really anything.
All right.
And then there's, there's the final question, which is the Matt Boyd question. So
Yes.
There you go.
Well, yeah, that's all. That was going to be the next
Are you guys-
question. Yeah,
I was wondering when we were going to get to the elephant in the room here for $7 million.
I'm not going to avoid that question. It's a doozy, but I'm not avoiding it. But I just wanted to see because tomorrow's the deadline. It's topical. So
yeah, I had to bring that up just because I thought you were asking me which minor leaguers would debut in the show next year. I just totally spotted that question. I was like, okay, we got to talk about Matt Boyd now.
Yeah, we're gonna lead in the Matt. That actually leads in the Matt Boyd question. But before we do that, Uper and Mark, what do you guys think besides Matt Boyd, or if you want to say Matt Boyd, that's fine. But
I was half ready to say Matt Boyd, but I was actually thinking about Brian Garcia as well. I don't know if he showed enough where they're going to keep him around. Although I suppose relief pitchers have, 9 lives, so maybe that's a bad one to call. But if Garcia goes, that wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me either, Uper. I think that's a solid call, especially with how well Foley and Lang threw at the end of the year. Yeah. But the question is, you don't cut guys until you have a good idea of what you want to. You could cut them later when you add players through free agent signings, etc. So I'm not so sure that Garcia will get cut tomorrow, but he could definitely get cut soon as they add more attractive alternatives than him. But I think Garneau, you have to decide between. You can't keep Griner and Garneau. I'd get rid of both of them, by the way. Then you have weird stuff like Del Pozo, guys that have shown a lot of AAA and but are career 4A or less players, and they're just taking up space. So I would say there's a good chance there's 2 catchers. Del Pozo would be another guy I would cut. I'm not a huge Zach Short guy. I don't ever think he'll hit. And I thought his defense seemed entertaining at times, but when you don't turn routine outs into outs, it's concerning, especially to a manager like Hinch. And I think Zach Short was not a super great fielder, and you can check the data if you want, but he looks like he is, but the numbers don't necessarily bear it out.
yeah, he also had a negative run saved, a defensive run saved too. And so let's talk about Matthew Boyd. Let's bring that elephant up in the room. As with the recent signing, and he's due for a raise. He's arbitration eligible, or I believe that's correct. Or yes, I think that's correct. Yeah. So I'll start with you, Dave. In terms of Matthew Boyd's a great teammate. He does a lot for the community. The arm issue towards the end of the season brought up a few red flags. He had some stretches this year where he pitched really good, And then again, the home run ball was an issue again. But do you see him compromising and perhaps making a deal with the Tigers, or he's going to test the free agent waters?
If it's me, I'd let him test those waters. I mean, look, the consistency, whether it be injury or whatnot, to me, it seems is an issue each and every year. And at some point, you're focusing on these young arms. You've got Rodriguez. I think I'd just move on at this point. I mean, thank you for your service. You've been, as you say, a great teammate, a great representative for the Detroit Tigers and the city of Detroit. But thanks, but good luck.
All right, Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. I think that you would just say, hey, if you want to talk about maybe like a 2-year deal for, combined as much as we're going to pay you, because you just can't pay somebody $7+ million if they're not going to pitch until July. This isn't like, the heyday of Roger Clemens where he comes in and makes 15 starts for $15 million. This is Matthew Boyd. He's a solid, number 4 starter. And let him go test the waters and say, we're open to signing you back, but go see what you can get.
Seattle needs starters. I mean, he is from the area, so I could see possibly Seattle maybe checking and seeing if he wants to come home, possibly. But Brandon, what about you?
Me?
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I'd like to keep Matt Boyd for like 2 years, $6 million total. There's not that many good left-handed arms out in the game. I'd like to be able to use him as sort of a flex guy the way we've been using Tyler Alexander. I think, we've seen Matt Boyd come out of the bullpen once or twice. Max velocity out of the bullpen for him is more like 95, 96 at times. He could be a pretty useful left-handed reliever. But yeah, I'm not going to try really hard. If he doesn't want to give me a cheap 2, 3, I might even go 3 years if it's like, if we're talking $3 million a year. If that helps make up his mind and he just is content to stay around and see this thing through, that would be fine with me. But yeah, for the time being, I'm not going to push very hard. And if he wants to, if he can get a good contract and be signed up to start somewhere next year, he should probably do that.
Yeah, and I know we got some people on our YouTube chat there that want to still believe he's part of the rotation or should stay around, and I can see that perhaps again towards the back end of the rotation. Mark, you have the floor on this one.
First of all, I think somewhere Matt Boyd, if he was eating dinner, he probably just got a huge pain in his side when he heard Brandon say he was going to get $2 million. It's going to get $6 million for 2 years. It was like he must wonder if he pulled an oblique or something. It was. Oh my God, poor Matt. But to be honest with you, Matt Boyd's not throwing a competitive inning here until the middle of July. So if he's staying here, I can promise you they're offering him a 1-year, $3 million with some incentive type of deal, and it's going to be up to him whether he wants to take it or not. As far as I find it highly unlikely they're going to offer him 2 years. And if you want to go by the data, and we've done all kinds of stuff about this. Brandon and Brandon's written some things you guys have. I mean, Matt Boyd last 60 starts, 15 of them are good. 45 of them, 15 are good. 15 are just horrendous. And 30 are slightly below average. He's probably got a ERA over the last 60 starts of close to 5. So what are you getting? And how long are you waiting for it? It's year 6. So what do you? Just because you know a guy and you've watched him throw an occasional good game, it doesn't mean he's good. And he had a great pitching coach last year, and they tweaked him a lot. He started out really well in the first month, and every time Matt Boyd starts out well, what ends up happening by, start 12, start 16, start 20?
Yeah, that's the problem. We can't get April and May Boyd this year and then trade him. Which has been the scheme. Everybody has promoted for about 3 years now. Like just trade him before the weather warms up.
Right. When they had a chance to trade him, what happened? They asked for Fort Knox, and they seem to be stuck with a guy that they're willing to pay $3 million to pitch half a season with now, and no assets are dealt. So, the bottom line is, look, I find it highly unlikely he's getting more than a 1-year deal, and I would not be shocked if he got a 0-year deal. And, he's been a good soldier. We've had some terrible teams, and he's soaked up innings. Starting pitching, you need to get 800 to 900 innings from your starting pitching. Getting Eduardo Rodriguez, the biggest thing it does, it gets you 150 innings that are pretty reliable if he stays healthy, which he's been the last 2 full seasons, which are 2019 and 2021, he was pretty damn good. He was almost a 4-WAR pitcher in both years. So, as far as Matthew Boyd, it's been fun. He's a great guy. He's not a really good pitcher, though.
Trevor, what about you? And then I'll end it with Hooper, and then before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing too different. I probably think let him walk. I think my only thought is thinking, what will it happen? And I think that is how fast are times changing, because there's been a lot of guys over the last few years who Tigers fandom has called for their head. I can remember maybe Kyle Funkhauser, Michael Fulmer at one point, all over the place. And now they have, they have roles, they have use. So I think it's just how fast are times changing. How does the front office think? How long do they think they can hold on? I think you let him test the waters if he wants to test the waters. If he wants to stick around for the money that you can offer him, sure. It just for the front office, how fast are they wanting to get competitive, and how long of a leash can they give a guy like Matthew Boyd?
Hooper?
Yeah, well, lots been said, but I'll say this: in the off season where they're looking to hunt for pitching, and every dollar is probably going to count. They can save $7-8 million and not offer him even anything, just get him off the roster. That's probably a better bet for their money, because when you think about it, let's say they do contend next year, and let's say he comes back in July, and which is a drawback in itself. He's not pitching until the middle of the season. I mean, in any scenario, down the stretch in September as they're battling for the playoffs, or even if they get into the playoffs, where does Matt Boyd sit in the pecking order of who they want taking the ball? I mean, really not pretty far down, Yeah. So I think it's just time to move on. And again, he's been great. He's a good guy, but he can go be a good guy for the Nationals.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think the Mariners would be a good natural fit for him, because he is really. I think he still lives during the off season. I think there, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He still goes out to drive line sometimes. It's also a good fit because the Mariners starting pitching is always terrible. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're not. Trust me. Again, how they got close to the playoffs with that run differential last year, I'm still. It was one of the most amazing things I've seen in a long time. But wanted to change gears a little bit, and we have some questions, what have you. But before we move on, was there anything that perhaps I missed about the free agent talk? Because I have a bunch of topics here, but I'm just trying to sort through. Chris, am I missing anything? Free agent?
I don't know, man. This week, all of it was. We talked shortstop. We talked. Correa. We talked pitching. We talked. I don't know what else they're gonna. Maybe reliever. I don't know.
I want to say though, I do applaud Major League Baseball today that brought down. I think it was yesterday, I believe, that they're going to be paying for the minor leagues housing from now on. So minor league players are not responsible for up and down or really bad leases. So
they don't have to be on the lease anymore. I guess if the teams are going to sign all the leases and control all that, which is pretty huge. Because just imagine what you were like at 20 in terms of finances, and then now you've got to move to another town and play baseball somewhere else. And this is baseball players on top of it, and you got to manage your lease and your sublease and all that. Yeah, it was just.
I remember talking to players who had been promoted throughout the year, and they're saying, "Man, I have a lease here. I have a lease, in Erie. I have a lease like in different towns because they had to."
Yeah. Yeah, when you're
Yeah,
Spencer Torkelson, you can get away with that, but when you're making, $35,000 or something, not so much. Makes it even tougher.
And,
Well, I enjoyed AJ Cooper's tweet today from Baseball America, where he said he's witnessed fights in locker rooms over guys not paying their share of the bills as they're sharing their, the utilities and so on. Just the disharmony that's created. So.
Yeah.
And there's some areas too where the cost of living has gone up, and so for a place like, for example, I remember reading about Stockton, California, well, things like that. That's just progress, and so I finally think that the MLB are right there listening to the fans, and I don't think they could have took another year of. There was a lot of heat on Major League Baseball, especially when the story came out about the Angels, and there was just a lot of that. It was just very ugly, but either way, I applaud baseball for doing the right thing. So. But there's also I want to ask you guys this: the good idea or bad idea? Start with you, Dave. Noel Syndergaard, 1 year, $21 million. Good idea, bad idea?
Look, it's still a lot of money, but it's a short-term risk-reward scenario, I guess, right? So, from that standpoint, I've got less issue with it. I'm just glad I don't own a baseball team. I mean,
you should want to own a baseball team.
Yeah.
Well, true from the valuation. You're right. Absolutely. I mean, look at the Tigers. Look at and across the board in all of pro sports, right? But I mean, in terms of actually making the decisions to pay, some of these guys the money that you're paying them, it's like, man, that's still, I know it's the price of admission and all, but man, that'd still be a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't care how many millions you have, or billions.
Yeah, if you didn't get those millions and billions by not counting them closely.
Yeah, right.
Well, you may have inherited them, I suppose. But
so anyway, short risk reward potential. So if he's healthy, right? That's the big question.
Who needs pitching more than the Angels, by the way?
Yeah.
What, the team that only drafted pitchers in the most recent draft? You think they need pitching?
Was it 21 picks, all pitchers, right? Yeah. Oh man, it's a crazy. Chris, what about you? Good idea, bad idea?
I mean, it's fine. I think I was said in our private chat that it feels very Angels. Like, it feels like they're going to get about 80 innings of 5 ERA from Syndergaard this year, and then 2023 he's going to be good again. But they will have paid $21 million and given up a draft pick for 1 year of that. It's the first time I can ever remember somebody getting a 1 year offer with a qualifying offer attached. Like, it's really odd.
It was yeah.
But I mean, when he's healthy, he's among the best arms in the game, really. So it's worth a risk, I guess. It just felt like if you're going to do it, you might as well do it for a couple of years, or at least get some options in there.
Yeah, I don't like that part of it. If you're going to be, if you're going to try to pick him up, you would think you would want to believe in it long term. But the Angels are just desperate, and the Angels kind of run like if Mike Ilitch didn't have a good GM. That's pretty much how it's run there. I still don't really understand how you go and sign Anthony Rendon for that kind of money and you have no pitching staff. They like those big ticket items and the stars. They need a lot more, but they needed to go try to take a risk on a guy who, might, if things go really well, be a low 3 ERA guy for them this year and kind of give them someone else to rally around in the pitching staff. But those are big risks. And that's, we've had this conversation between all of us plenty of times about whether or not it was, it makes more sense to draft pitching and develop your own pitching, or whether that's where you should spend your free agent dollars. And I always come down with, I'm perfectly happy developing my own pitching, because putting those big dollars down on the riskiest assets in the game always scares me. But from their perspective, they had to do it, and at least it's only 1 year. It's a short thing. They have the money, and I'd like to see Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout in the postseason. I'm to the point where I'm rooting for them really hard, because it's just depressing watching how things go down there every year. There's always a great story and nothing else around it. So I hope it works out for them.
So I got a question for you guys.
All right.
who gave up the most runs in the National League in 2019?
Team pitcher who?
Pitcher.
2019. Robbie Ray.
Noah Syndergaard.
Another Syndergaard. Yeah.
So, guy hasn't thrown a baseball in 2 years. Really struggled to come back from TJ last year, and you're giving him $21 million. So I would say, personally, if I was doing roster construction, not real high on my list. However, I'll ask you a different way. If I would have told you that I gave Noah Syndergaard $16 million instead of $21 million, what would you have thought of the idea?
I mean, I think of it the same way. I mean, you're still taking that risk on that one big guy. The $5 million isn't. If I'm putting myself in Artie Moreno's shoes, yeah, that $5 million isn't terribly relevant, I guess. Although they do need a lot of depth, as you suggest. They should be plying the depth, everywhere as well.
It's all how you color in the lines. But look, Syndergaard is a vexing pitcher. He throws 100, but he's had he's actually had 2 really good years. So, but he has not stayed very healthy, and it's a lot of money. But it's Artie Moreno's money, and I can't think of anybody in baseball who deserves worse luck than Artie Moreno. He's just the worst human being ever.
Okay,
so,
what's the old adage? There's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal, right? I mean, weird doesn't mean bad. It's weird all around, I'm sure, but weird doesn't mean bad necessarily. So,
you should have spent that money on a great pitching coach, because that's just one of those
organizations
that just does not ever seem to put it all together. From the pitching side, and coordinating that with their defense, their catching. They've got Joe Madden there, who's supposed to be good at this sort of thing, and
but he's not.
I haven't seen
Joe Madden's really not. He's really
even
not
the Cubs
that good at it.
Yeah, even the Cubs didn't really work great along those lines. They had a good catcher. They had 2 good catchers, and David Ross and young Mr. Contreras at the time. And that wasn't a dominating pitching staff, and they kind of made it work. But yeah, I haven't seen any signs of it in LA. They just seem to be kind of doing their usual. Okay, we're just going to pick up a bunch of guys and hope this time they don't all get hurt. So
I mean, and look, Billy Epler, is not. He has a lot of pedigree. He learned a lot. I mean, Billy Epler's not dumb, and he struggled there. And let me say that. I only am allowed to say nice things about Perry Minasian because he's a relative of my daughter-in-law, and he has a lot of pedigree also, by the way. I mean, Toronto is a really shrewd front office, and, Perry spent a lot of time there. And it's not a coincidence that Moreno hires smart people, and the disaster just continues for them, because you have the Willie Mays of his era, if not better, and they can't even play 500 baseball. It's a shame.
Yeah, they have that same thing that I always say about the White Sox, where there's just some underlying rot there that you have to think kind of goes to ownership, that where that team just never quite puts it together the way the talent level on paper says they should.
You mean like hiring a 77-year-old alcoholic instead of AJ Hinch?
Obviously that, but that was just like the most obvious, kind of manifestation of the whole problem all along. But you go back to just some of that nonsense with like Chris Sale cutting up the jerseys and like making weird controversies out of Adam LaRoche having his kid.
And Ozzie, how about the Ozzie Guillen era after they won?
They just shoot themselves in the foot over and over again, and it looks like, oh, this team should be a threat. So, yeah, the Angels have a lot of the same vibe, but without, Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez and Michael Kopech and on and on.
I hesitate to mention this, but there's a certain franchise in Detroit that knows a thing or two about having generational players and doing nothing with them. Yeah. And it does, at a certain point, after decades and decades, you wonder there's got to be some sort of underlying issue. This isn't just bad luck. So, yeah, the decisions are always kind of questionable there. I don't know. Did you have anything to say on
It's in their
Syndergaard?
own category as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I couldn't even go there, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well, I think the thing on Syndergaard was they waited to sign that deal until he passed the physical. He was going to take. He didn't turn down the qualifying offer, so he was always guaranteed the 18.4.
right. No doubt.
I think that with 21 million for him for 1 year, I don't mind the total so much for 1 year, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Chris. How they didn't get an option for a second year put onto that, very surprising. Because at least then you'd have a 50-50 chance of getting one good year out of him in either season. And I know the draft pick isn't the end of the world, but to give up the draft pick for one lousy year of an injury-prone guy was pretty questionable.
I wonder if they'll. I need them to trade us Brandon Marsh for, say, Matt Boyd.
Yeah, I would say
They got all
Brandon
those young
Marsh.
outfielders, but yeah, the young pitching is not there either. And yeah, giving up another pick is definitely, it has a cost. I mean,
Without
you look
getting
at the
too
slot value of the pick at $2 million, and that doesn't seem like that much. But yeah, you're already taking a pretty big risk with Syndergaard there, and if it doesn't work out, you're left with nothing next year.
We going to questions?
Yeah, we can go to questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we're losing bodies. I don't know how long we have Dave for. I don't know. I know you have a job there. You're doing.
I do. I got about another 10 minutes. So
Okay.
All right. Well,
yeah.
so we got a bunch of questions. People were excited about this episode.
And I organized the questions, Chris. There you go.
Oh, all
Sorry
right,
about that.
fantastic. But
Yeah. No, I had to step away for a minute. But yeah, we'll fly through these questions real quick.
Stockton was on the bench for a second. We took him.
yeah, good pitches.
I literally, it was just like, as soon as I got home from work, I went right on here. So it's been a pretty long day, but I'll start with the at Chris over at Alt Tiger 1974 on Twitter. Any other pre-lockout moves? If so, what do you think it could be? You guys continue the great work. Look forward to the show tonight. Thanks, Chris, for listening from Atlanta. Really one of my favorite Twitter follows too as well. We kind of answered that question already, unless you guys want to add something.
Not really. I mean, I think a couple big pieces are gonna sign, and I think by and large teams are going to be in a rush with a flurry of signings next week. I do think there's actually going to be more traffic maybe than people expect, but
we've heard some insider chatter that there's going to be at least one more big name pitcher signing within the next few days. I don't know who it is, but it wouldn't shock me to see that. I think there are teams and players who want to get this done before the uncertainty of the labor deal.
yeah, I don't. I mean, looking at what's being discussed, I don't see so much in the CBA negotiations that are going to radically, change things for teams to where, you could really screw yourself by signing someone early, and then the rules all change, and now you've, made some terrible error. It doesn't seem like things are going to be that different if they actually get a deal done because, they're far enough apart where it's almost at all right, well, let's just continue the status quo with a couple tweaks is probably going to be the ending resolution after however long they have to argue about it with each other. So yeah, I mean, I don't think teams are scared to sign people, and I think you're going to see a lot of aggression coming up next week.
So I'm going to skip around the order of the questions. So I like this question here from one of our longtime listeners, Nick Spillane at Neek Spills 8. If the Tigers do go after a right-handed outfield to the mix with what's already on the roster, do you think what do you guys think of Tommy Pham? Better or worse options for what the Tigers think they'll be willing to spend on that area?
Yeah, I saw that question today, so I did spend a little time digging into him. Obviously, for the last part of the last decade, really good player. And right up through 2019, he hit both. His platoon splits were great. But then he fell off the map in 2020 during the COVID year, which I give a mulligan to a lot of people. A lot of guys struggled that year. But he came back this year, and he wasn't very good again. And Nick's question kind of, I think, had him as kind of a platoon guy with Baddoo. He didn't hit lefties very well. I mean, he pretty low average. He did still draw some walks, a couple homers, but he's 34 years old. Maybe you think if he comes cheap, he's a bounce back guy, but it would have to be pretty cheap.
And he's not a very good defender anymore. He's been battling macular degeneration for like 5 years, or longer now, which is just outrageous that he's managed to be as good as he had. But yeah, he's not a guy. he's not a guy at that age I think is going to bounce back. I think he might be, a big problem that turns into an absolute nothing for whoever picks him up. But he won't be expensive anyway.
So just to add this, something you guys don't know, but Nick Spillane played with Nick Plummer.
Really?
At Brother Rice. He
I'll
sure
be
did.
damned. So I must have gone and seen him play it.
He did. He sure did. And Nick Spillane, pretty sharp baseball guy. Shout out to Nick. And
shout out to CH Catholic high schools there, right there, Nick. And Nick all knows full well to the stupid 3 balls, 2 strikes rule.
Yeah,
I know you love it, Mark. I'm sorry. When I played in Catholic League, I didn't like it. So
yeah, Mark Gorosh, he'd be all in favor of them cutting the game to 7 innings and getting it over in 2 hours and 15 minutes. But that's just a whole other podcast. Okay. Couple things I'll bring up to you guys. First of all, you know my love for Chris Taylor in the chat a few times during the World Series, and what an absolute savage baller he was in the playoffs, to say the least. And if you want to spend $15 million, that's some money well spent, because he can play 50 games in center field as a right-hand platoon player. He can play second and short. He can do lots of stuff, and steals bases. He walks. He hits homers. Money well spent to me. I especially in the window you're going to have the next 2-3 years. I'm all on board with that. I did a little homework about right-hand hitters and actually pretty decent defenders, and I did notice the WRC plus for my most personally hated player, Victor Reyes, in 2021, 132 WRC plus against left-hand hitters. Derek Hill, 116. So if I know this, I can promise you that Jay Sartori knows it. So I'm not so sure they're going to be spending too much money on outfielders when they have 2 young, $565,000 a year, reasonably decent, if not plus, defenders who run fast, who seem to hit left-hand pitching pretty well. So
yeah, you still got to develop your guys,
Well, I'm just saying, you got X amount of dollars to spend. You got 2 guys that hit left-hand pitching pretty well, and they cost $565,000. I mean, you want to go spend a bunch of money on other people. You got X amount of dollars to spend, and it's how you allocate it. Look, you want to get Chris Taylor, who's going to hit 25 homers. That's a different talk, all right, who plays 4 positions. But, signing Michael Conforto for $18 million, that's not going to make any sense to me, because you have other needs to spend $18 million on besides a left-hand hitter. You already have 3 left-handers starting in your outfield. So, I mean, Riley Green is going to start in center field, people. He's going to be there on opening day, and I would say there's a really high likelihood he's the rookie of the year next year, but that's just my own personal opinion. But
well, I love me some Riley Green, but I don't love me some Riley Green necessarily in center field in Comerica. but it'll do.
Listen, you and I have our own debates late into the night way too often, but they were a -21 defensive runs saved in center field last year. So I think if I cut off Riley Green's foot, he'll probably be better than that.
Yeah, so he can match that. I'll give you that.
Right. So, but the answer, outfielders, yeah, probably unlikely.
So I wanted, before Dave leaves, Dave, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking Tigers, and look forward to seeing you once again down at the ballpark, asking the man on the street stuff. That was, I don't know if you remember me from last year, but
I absolutely do. Opening day.
Yeah, that was awesome. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, yeah, go channel if you check out the news after this.
It was
I learned a lot
honor.
that day.
You did learn a lot that day. That's awesome. And hopefully we'll see you down there again this year. And we'll
be down.
Awesome.
We'll be down. And it was great fun. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I follow you guys and listen regularly, and will continue to do so. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
Dave.
Have a good evening, man. That's awesome.
Hey, Dave.
All right. So Dave LewAllen from.
What a good human.
Yeah.
Now that the newsman's out here, let's get to swearing.
Wait, let me bust out my shirt and tie now.
That was awesome. Yeah, what a good dude. The one thing I'll say, like, just to finish up on Tommy Pham, because I don't think I mentioned it. It wouldn't shock me at all if he doesn't get if he's stuck with like a minor league spring training invite.
Yeah.
You've got a 34-year-old right outfielder who can't play center field anymore, and it isn't a big power threat. That's not what teams are looking for anymore.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All
We had
right.
a question. We had a question in there from where Van go. If you had another $60 million to spend, who would you target?
Chris
John-
Taylor.
Well, I mean, we're talking $60 million right now. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're going to get a shortstop, right? You have 30, 35 of that at Correa.
25 to 35 is for a shortstop, because if you're not
Yeah.
signing Correa, you're signing Story or something like it.
Yeah.
I'm
God.
gonna stock up some relievers too. Yeah, I mean, if we're going big, I'm gonna try to pick up. I don't know if I'm gonna go after Razel Iglesias necessarily, but yeah, try to pick up
would.
relievers. I'm gonna sign Correa or Story, and then yeah, you're probably gonna allocate that toward another starting pitcher.
I would use that money to go after John Gray, or if they make a trade for Luis Castillo, find a way to solidify him. Although that's kind of far fetched because the minor league system's so. Again, I feel like a broken record, but I still think it lacks depth. But,
yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to trade. I've tried, because a lot of people, obviously the fan base has been slightly brainwashed into being very terrified of spending Chris Ilitch's money, and so I've tried to look for all kinds of trade possibilities and stuff to solve some of these problems. But yeah, I'm not interested in trading Matt Manning or Dylan Dingler, and when you get past that, you don't have a whole lot unless you've got someone who wants some. I mean, if you want to trade Roberto Campos or something, or Christian Santana, and and just Willie Adames, the situation from there, I guess you could do that. But yeah, I'm not at the point of doing this right now. Like the payroll has been really low for quite a while. This is the right time to just spend money. That's it.
So I got a name, B, that
trade.
I think that they're willing to give away. They're not dumb anymore, so they may want something for real, which we may not have to give them. But I'll tell you a guy that's going to get dumped. But the line, somebody will give him something adequate, but we should see if we can get in the mix, is Sonny Gray.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah, definitely. And as far as before we get to the next question, I've been seeing this a lot more so than normal, maybe because I'm hyper focused to it. But honestly, I do not like the fact when I see fans going, we don't want to spend the money. First of all, there's no we. Sorry, there's no we. I'm sorry. That is one of those. Every time even a writer does that, it's one thing I learned. If there's one thing I learned from Mike Moreland, shout out to Mike Moreland, who was a guy who I started with Sports Radio Detroit with many moons ago. Don't use the word we. And fans complain about, I use we. Okay, fine. It's not your money though. So quit pretending it's your money. And I understand why. Well, look at the Miguel Cabrera trade or deal. That yada yada yada. It's a legacy deal. And it's worth every penny of it. So enough. It's not your money.
Stop. 33.
Yeah.
It was also listen, we can debate that, but it's also an 83-year-old man who did impulsive things. He wanted to give $150 million to Chris Davis. He did weird stuff when he didn't have to.
Yeah.
But we have, guys, you have no idea the mess that would have gotten made if Al Avila was the GM instead of Dave Dombrowski in the days when the insane ideas of Mike Ilitch were getting tamped down that you don't know about. It craziness would have ensued because Dombrowski would talk him out of things that were nutty. And so,
you never know how far those things went. I mean, like maybe he brought up like, maybe we should sign Chris Davis. Wasn't necessarily like
$154 million
drawn out and Dave threw himself on it or what have you. Or Al.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think using we happens. Like we're all fans too. Sometimes you're going to say we, but definitely don't say we when you're talking about Chris Ilitch's money. Like that's the last time that there's a we involved.
Spend $500 million doing casino things in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Don't worry about Chris Ilitch's money, please.
So I admittedly I have COVID right now, and so I don't know if my brain is working fully, at 100%. And a lot of what's happened this week already is sort of like what a fever dream would be like for me, I think. So maybe this is, but as I was walking today, I was like, I wonder if the Tigers could finagle Craig Kimbrell somehow, like a 3-team trade.
Why would they want to, Chris? Answer me that.
If they want, I mean, he's still an elite lockdown closer.
Is he?
I mean, he didn't function well as a setup man with the White Sox, but before that, he's 16 strikeouts per 9. If you want a reliever, and you could figure out a way to get, the White Sox need a second baseman or something like that, give me Isaac Paredes, get him out of Chicago. We'll take Kimbrell for a year. I don't particularly care about the bullpen that much right now, but a lot of people seem to be talking about it. So it's like, all right, go get possibly the best closer available.
I think the bullpen's the most important, best part of the AJ Hinch Tigers right now. I think it's a primary part of how he wins games. But I'm not spending $16 million on Craig Kimbrell. But if you want to add another power reliever, I'm all in on it. I discussed this last night with Cody. I'm a big believer about spending $5 million on Brooks Raley, though. I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
So the next question we have is the lineup of Torque, Green, Candy, and the shortstop we get enough to challenge in 2023? Do we need to replace Grossman with another free agent? Kabadu hit enough to be useful here? Do we let Mickey go after 2022, add a plus hitter, and protect against injury or lack of production by others? That's a big question. Michael Meyer at Kaiser343.
Kaiser.
Yeah.
A lot to chew on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'll lead off by saying I don't think that lineup is enough. Even, unless Torque and Green just come out and are both, pulling a Simeon and Guerrero, both putting up like 6-win seasons.
Guerrero,
yeah. You need a little bit more. It doesn't necessarily have to be, all-star level players, but you need some more talent around the field.
Yeah, I don't know that you need, you necessarily need like another, big bat in there. You'd like one. I like Candy more than some do, but there's also the question of like, what happens when he's making $15 million in 2 seasons potentially. There's going to be some challenges when you kind of get past this kind of Scope, Grossman, Candelario, backup group or sort of veteran core. So there's going to be problems there. But this team for right now is going to be based around pitching. And I don't know if anybody's brought this up yet, but I mean, we're all pretty much in agreement that there's going to be like 7 teams from each league making the playoffs going forward, I assume. And, you for now, I just want to get in the tournament. When you get past Miggy's money, then maybe you start, you reevaluate where you're at and start thinking about possibly coming up with another big bat somewhere or making a trade, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, I just want to get the shortstop, build in some depth right now and kind of see how things play out this year before I start, like adding more and more on and like signing another, $15, $20 million player. None of us knows where Chris Ilitch's ceiling is at, but I don't really want to be too close to it just yet. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of change that comes up. And we also have to look at, we have probably a lot more faith, I assume, than we used to in the managerial guy who's got a hand here and the coaching staff. I mean, I look to them to solve some of these problems with smaller pieces and, and bring some people along. And if the development staff is better, which, I mean, they have to be better, honestly. but if they're good, hopefully they find something and can develop it. Like you said earlier, like Brian Packard did nothing this year, unfortunately. Austin Murs, these guys are an A-ball. There really isn't much, like maybe Kreidler takes another step, gets better against right-handers and is right up in our face next year doing really well. That would be cool. But, Cody Clemens, we're not expecting much out of anybody else who's above the A-ball levels right now. So I know we don't have a lot of help coming, but we're going to have to find some smaller pieces that can help too. It's not just going to be, signing another big guy every year.
I think, going back to the question a little bit, where do the Tigers rank in home runs this year? It was like 13th in the American League.
Correct. Yeah.
It's still a home run driven league. And you go across the outfield, we don't know what Riley Green will be in the first couple of years of his career. Hopefully down the road, he's a 20-25 homer guy. But they need to find some power for the outfield and, something more than Robbie Grossman. And again, he hit 23, and that's fantastic. But to me, that's an outlier of his career. After this year, he'll be gone, most likely. So the question talked about 2023. I think that's, where they got it. They got to add some power, probably a left fielder or something like that. You can usually find some big thumper who plays left field. I would hope that's something that's in their mind, unless Hinch wants to go, 1980s Cardinals, which I doubt to do. I think they got
Herzog ball.
Yeah,
But
White ball, sorry.
Go trade for Matt Olson, if you want to, and throw him in a corner when you need to. It'll probably be ugly there, but that's a heck of a bat. But again, we're talking about giving up a big piece to get him.
Yeah, the 2023 outfielders, I think, are Gallo and Judge and Buxton. Not like nobody super safe. I mean, there's some good players, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. There's no like easy button there. There's going to be a lot of competition for a couple of those guys.
How about the Japanese guy who's posting next week?
Suzuki? Is that his name? Yep.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so I got a question. It
right.
kind of centers around what we were just discussing. So why don't we discuss what you think the lineup is going to be, including free agents that you sign on opening day this next coming year? I mean, I could have thrown out a question like, would you make a deal to get Frankie Montas and Olsen if you had to put Spencer Torkelson in the deal? But we can come back to that later. Tell me what you think the opening day lineup will be next year. Just give me your, forget the pitching for a second. Give me your DH and your position players.
Wait, who?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing
Whoever,
first, who's playing second,
Yeah.
Tell me what you think it's going to be.
Yeah. Who's on first? Who's on second?
All right. I mean, I'll go first if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm pretty much where you are with Riley. Like, I think it's going to be very hard to keep. I just think Riley's going to show out probably in the spring, and they're going to have a hard time keeping him down. Maybe they'll screw around with him. Maybe they won't. But I'm going to put Riley in there, in probably. Oh God, I hate putting him in center field though.
You have to.
It'll be faster and it'll be simpler. But yeah, I'm going Grossman first. I'm gonna go Riley. I'm going to go Carlos Correa, and then I am probably going to go Torkelson, Candelario, Cabrera, Barnhart, something along those lines.
Scope.
Yeah, Scope obviously in there. Yeah, something like that. But that's kind of that's who we all think are going to be in the the top 4 or 5. And you're going to juggle it. Sometimes you're going to have Baду lead off against right-handers, and when he's not, maybe you lead off with Riley. They had Riley lead off everywhere he was at in the minor leagues this year. Although he doesn't necessarily strike me as a leadoff hitter type, but neither did George Springer, and they've made that work in various places. So, you're going to toy with it. Obviously, this is AJ Hinch. We're not going to have, a set lineup that he just runs out there against whoever it is. But, you're going to go with those guys. You're going to try to mix Miggy as far back as you can without really irritating him. And, something along those lines. And then you're going to have, when Derek Hill's in there, Derek Hill's going to be 9th. You're going to have Barnhart back there or Haas hitting 8th or 9th.
All right, Chris, what about you? I'll go last.
Yeah, this is something I haven't even thought about, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I would probably. I don't think we're going to get both Torkelson and Green in the opening day lineup.
Yeah,
maybe. It's just by luck of the draw or whatever. Somebody's gonna, or he'll try to open another can or something like that, and things will go wrong. But
call mine the Mayhew lineup. Yeah.
yeah. I would assume it'll be like Badu, Grossman, whoever they sign. Probably Correa or Story or somebody like that, batting third, followed by either Candelario or maybe Cabrera still gets to bat cleanup. And then, those two, and then you got Scope and hell, I don't know. I don't know who's playing where. I honestly have not thought about it yet.
Well, I think,
All right.
What do you got,
Go ahead,
Raj?
Go ahead. Uper.
I think whichever shortstop they sign, I mean, they're all pretty much a candidate to bat 3rd or 4th. Semyon, for instance. I mean, he's obviously whether it's him or Correa, they're batting third or fourth. A lot depends too here on the CBA. Most people seem to think that the service time thing goes away, but there's no guarantee of that.
Yeah.
If it does not go away or it survives in some fashion, I'm always the person. I would play the service time game, and I know a lot of fans hate it and think it's unfair. A lot of journalists hate it, and it is unfair. But if it's the rule, then Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson are not on my opening day roster. If I got to keep them down in the minors for 10 or 12 days, that's what I'm doing. So, so that changes the opening day lineup quite a bit. If that goes away and they earn it, then boom, they're in the lineup and off we go.
Well, as far as the lineup, I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to go with opening lineup. So I've come to the conclusion about something, and it'll come up here in just a second. So batting leadoff would be perhaps Akil Baddoo. Batting second, and this is kind of where I'm kind of struggling with, but I think batting second would be somebody along the lines of maybe. I'm trying to think of I don't know who I'd bat second. For now, I put Robbie Grossman batting second. Batting third.
I love Grossman there because he's such a pain in the butt. He's just not going to chase at anything. He's not going to chase. He's going to make you throw it in there, and either going to hit it in the air or he's going to walk. That's what
and he can draw good contact and get potentially like for batting third would be somebody like perhaps. I think this is where I think I had a struggle with, but I went back and forth about it. But I think you put if Cabrera takes it. Him batting third, batting fourth is Carlos Correa. I've come around the fact that there's some smoke. There's a lot of smoke today that kind of made me come to that conclusion that he probably could possibly come here. So I'm on record now. Number batting fifth. If Candelario's still here, again there could be a possibility that he could be moved, but then again I don't think so. I think he'll end up staying here. Batting six. I think you go with somebody along the lines of. So see here. I'm trying to think of. I'm missing the outfielder, right? So
you still think Scope, right? Gotta get that
Scope. Yeah, Scope. Duh, Scope.
Yeah.
Batting seventh is going to be perhaps who's trying to think. I was trying to think of the outfield right now off the top of my head.
That could be a Riley Green spot. Ease him in.
Yeah, I think Riley Green makes the team out of spring. I think to me, manipulation time be damned. I think he has a good chance. So batting seventh, put Riley Green, give him a little less pressure to deal with. Batting eighth, you're going to have along the likes of, let's see here, the Tucker Barnhart batting eighth and batting ninth. I covered shortstop. So shortstop, third base.
A second baseman, I guess, if you got Scope playing first and Cabrera DHing.
So second baseman, you said?
Yeah.
Harold.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yomar
Sanchez.
Yeah, or maybe if the Tigers go after this guy, Yomar Sanchez. There you go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really hard to do right now because, there's a lot of moving pieces. We don't know if Torkelson and Green will be there right away, and if they're not, that radically changes things. You're basically looking at the same lineup this year, with whatever shortstop inserted in there. One thing I would say, one thing that's interesting about thinking Correa versus Story. I mean, Story, one of the things you like best about him is, he's probably going to steal you 20, 25 bags a year. But if he's your 3 or your 4 hitter, because he's your most dangerous, hitter in the lineup, that might negate some of that value. They're going to have to play with that depending on which one they get. I'm 100% convinced they're signing Correa now after everything we've seen today, obviously.
You think?
But, it still could be Story. And, Story's a little bit different type of player. He doesn't make as much contact. He's more of a free swinger than Correa is. That kind of changes it. You might want Story more like this the 2-hitter, where sometimes he's going to drive the leadoff hitter in with a home run, or other times he's going to function as the leadoff hitter and hopefully get on base and run amok out there, or at least be a problem for pitchers on the mound.
What happened to Trevor?
Oh yeah, he had to sign off.
Oh.
Yeah. It's almost 10 o'clock.
All right.
He's got to go to bed.
All right, I'll give a fast lineup. I'm not nearly as shrewd as you guys from predicting the batting order. I don't think AJ Hinch can predict the batting order yet. So you got, Barnhart's going to catch, platoon with Haas. I think Torkelson's starting the year at first base, Shoop at second, free agent shortstop. Please come here, Carlos. At short, Candelario at third, and I think you got an all left-hand hitting outfield with a bunch of platoon pieces fitting in from time to time. You got Baду, Green, and Grossman across the outfield, and I think that you between Haas, Hill, and Reyes, you have 3 right-hand hitting backup outfield pieces. If you want to sign Chris Taylor, I'm loving that idea. You guys know I'm loving that idea. But my answer to you is one of the biggest reasons why I also think Torkelson will be the starting first baseman to start the year is because you have so many left-hand hitters that you need some right-hand hitters. And God knows, Miguel is very old now, and he's only going to play like 45 games at first base. Somebody's got to play first base. And unless Isaac Paredes is playing a lot of second base, and we had this talk last night. I mean, Isaac Paredes is both frustrating and tantalizing as can be because, you missed it last night. Here's the weird question about Isaac Paredes. If I would have told you a year and a half ago, man, Isaac Paredes, defensively, way better than we thought. How about how good at second base? Much better than we thought. Yet, a conundrum at the plate. You see a lot of good stuff. I told you, I said this last night. He's 50 feet away from hitting 5 more homers. He hit about 8 foul balls, 6 feet foul down the left field line, and 4 of them were caught at the wall. But, Paredes he's a vexing player.
I wish we traded him for something useful in 2019.
And I have tweeted this many times.
I begged them to do this.
I have some trade pieces that I'd like to pursue, and I try to do it in the roundtable every year. I've had such notable players that I've really wished for as Jose Martinez and Travis Shaw multiple times. But how'd those work out? But
it's hard.
Tyler Glasnow.
That kind of brings up another thing about not chasing some of these guys. Because whenever I hear someone who we wanted before everyone knew they were good, it's like, nope, we can't do that anymore. We can't sign Willie Peralta now. We're the team that finds the next Willie Peralta, and then someone else pays for him. We've got to be on that side of it.
And I want to come. Let's come back to that in a second because I want to bring this up. It's right in your wheelhouse. But I think that there are being a shrewd team now. If you want to waste $6 million, trade Sock Paredes to Tampa Bay for Tyler Glasnow, even though he's going to only be able to pitch probably in September. But that'd be a good piece to be bringing out of the bullpen if you're going to go into the playoffs, huh? So, I mean, Tampa's really going to have to swallow hard to pay Tyler Glasnow $6 million to do nothing this year. It's just not in their DNA.
Yeah.
So, you want to do something shrewd. You're only going to get him for really a year in a September, but I'd be willing to make a deal like that. And I think we talked about a guy last night that's probably a Brandon Day kind of player, which is Paul DeYoung. There's a utility guy that can hit the ball out of the park and do a bunch of stuff that was just horrible last year, but was not very horrible for the 3 or 4 years before that. So
we did get a listener question in YouTube in our chat from Scott Upham, and I really like this question. What are your options if the Tigers don't sign a top 5 free agent shortstop? And Scott goes on to mention the teams that need shortstops like the Angels, Astros, Cubs, Dodgers, Rangers, Red Sox, Twins, Yankees, Phillies, all need shortstops. And I was thinking along the trade line routes, if Paredes could be dangled for a shortstop, but again, if they don't get the top 5, I don't know if they could catch for Paredes. But I'll start with you, Chris.
Well, I wrote. First of all, I guess if they can't get one of these top 5 shortstops, then they probably need to get a new front office. I mean,
it was supposed to be this big surplus of shortstops.
Yes.
Where was that?
I
love that answer.
At the beginning, there's a lot of
because
interest too.
For real, I mean, in most off seasons, Javier Baez would be the prize shortstop, and he's the 5th option, here, maybe the 6th, depending on if you like Taylor as a shortstop. This is for a team that desperately needs a shortstop. If they can't come out of this with one of those guys, they've really screwed the pooch. I actually wrote a piece. I said, looking at trade options for if they don't get one of these guys, and it was the options were awful.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be creative. Paul DeJong was one of them, but then the other ones were like Miguel Rojas from Miami. I had Kevin Newman from Pittsburgh, like a bunch of basically guys who are equivalent to Nico Goodrum.
Yeah. How about this?
Or you have to pay, or you're going to pay big for Willie Adames. You're going to. That's the only other thing I can think of is that the Brewers
imagine Willie Adames.
We can move Luis, or Reyes over to shortstop. Add a second base bat, and we don't want to pay Adames, what he's going to make, his final year arbitration. But yeah, I don't know. That feels like chasing. You're going to chase pretty hard there, and the Brewers are pretty smart. Whatever pitcher they insist on in a deal like that, you're gonna end up regretting probably.
You don't want the 45th best shortstop in baseball, Jose Iglesias, to come back, or no?
Yeah. Oh my God!
Right,
somebody is going to pay Javi Baez a very bad contract this offseason because there's nothing left at the end. I just have that feeling. Hopefully his representatives are just like, nope, we're going to let everybody else sign, and everybody's going to come running screaming to your door, and then Steve Cohen's going to turn around and just be like, all right, here's another big check.
But I'm saying he's a pretty good player, man.
He is.
He is.
I can see him going to Philly.
I could see that.
Yeah, going to Philly because Philly might be. You mentioned this, Mark, yesterday. It even occurred to me about giving a big contract to Correa, but they already have so many big contracts on the books. And if Baez wants to preferably stay on the East Coast or whatever the case may be, I think he would be a perfect fit for Philadelphia. He could be more of a star there and give them solidify a defense last year. And he's a good defensive upgrade, but in terms of you're right. The market, Chris, as you mentioned, it is awful. It is awful, and they have to get this right. And it's, even the one thing that I noticed about some of the shortstop trade possibilities too is they cannot give away. Like we've talked about this. This is the end of the night. They can't give away prospects they don't have. And I know and Avila has talked about this, where he has mentioned that he doesn't want to give a lot of prospects away for that. So one they've only given up is Nick Quintana, and are we losing anything? No.
Is Avila still the general manager?
Al Avila's not the one having lunch with Carlos Correa.
I didn't want to say that. I did want to say it, but
Scott brings up some good names there. I like these names.
AJ's running the show. That's the way it is now. But yeah, this is why everybody wants to big brain some amazing idea where we get a good shortstop and the cost is very expensive. There are just certain times in baseball if you're actually giving a damn about winning, when you just have to go get your guy. And if it costs you more than it should, if you have to sign into one long-term deal that you're going to hate, in 2029. Assuming I'm still around, you just have to do it sometimes. And that's the problem. You have to come away with a good shortstop this offseason. And that puts you in just a weird position where you may have to overpay. That's just the way the market goes sometimes. The Tigers were smart, getting Tucker Barnhart because there wasn't another good defender that you could put back there to catch 120 games with this staff and the way this pitching, the way these pitching coaches are going to work, and to have a left-handed bat. Tucker Barnhart isn't necessarily that valuable a player, but to the Tigers, he was extremely valuable, and they went right ahead and got him. And
they paid $2 or $3 million.
I have to think they're going to do the same thing here and make it happen one way or the other, but there's no guarantee.
Yes.
I think they'll get one of them. I think there's no question. I think you're right. They'll overpay for one, even if they get desperate and take the last one. But going back to Scott's question, if they did strike out on all of them, then, I think whoever your best starter left outside of Max Scherzer, you go after him. Then I think you could look at a Raisel Iglesias for the bullpen, because I love that pitcher. And then Starling Marte, who I know I talk about all the time, that comes into play then. Because who cares where you get the offense? If you get the offense in the outfield and you're not getting a shortstop, that's not the end of the world. So if they did strike out completely on the shortstops, I think that's what I would like to do.
Yeah,
another big pitcher and another big
recreate him in aggregate, as Billy Bean says in Moneyball.
There you
go. So I was gonna say, Uper, if the Tigers get Starling Marte, I'll buy you a Tigers jersey for your son, or a Marte jersey for your son.
He's
All right, if that happens,
needs some more.
for me,
You need some more.
he does need some more. He's got a great jersey collection as it stands, but I will buy him one myself personally if that happens, because I would be even astonished by that. But let's see here. We have one more question, and we're gonna wrap it up here. And that was these kind of questions. Actually, we answered this question earlier. Of course, our friend Deadly Ninja Bees on Twitter. He just says, "Does A-Rod signing mean that Boyd is expendable now? That would be a lot of lefty starters." And this question we didn't answer. Should the Tigers look to improve their arm barn through free agency?
Their what?
I like that.
The arm barn.
Arm barn. Instead of the bullpen.
Oh, that's the bullpen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've answered both questions.
I already have a list from Chris Better of like, give me 10 guys that no one is thinking about that you would like to work with. Yeah, and I'd be
nice.
Guys cheap for sure.
Yeah.
So this question from Michael Siffer at Siffer Michael, who has a cool University of Toledo flag. My question for the pod: will Comerica Park fences be adjusted to Tiger Stadium's dimensions? 5 feet each line out by 420 wall. Now that Miguel has 500. And Lynn has been approached by Chris Ellis to lead the charge.
Yeah, I think that was a question. Assuming Lynn was going to be out here tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the follow-up is
the
follow-up is: can we replace the fountain with bleachers, retractable canopy to shield the sun for day games over some seats? I actually like that idea because I think it's really hot out there.
The fountain is the most useless feature in the entire stadium. It only goes off when something good happens. They could just get a guy with a hose. If you're gonna have a fountain, have it going the whole time.
No.
And then Tiger Mileage Tracker is Kean, of course. Is there any chance the Tigers will ever sign Verlander, Scherzer, Castellanos, Iglesias, Suarez, McCann, and also pull Placido Polanco out of retirement? And the reason why I put the Rick Porcello thing up earlier, I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
Yeah.
To me, is where is Rick Porcello? I mean, is he off on a boat somewhere?
Yeah, he's fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone fishing for good. Here's what I want to do with the stadium. I want to tear down Comerica Park now that we have netting everywhere around the backstop, and I want to build a park where you are right on top of the action once again. That's what I want to go back to. I don't care about whatever they can put, a train. They can put, the Joe Biden going around in circles in a electric Hummer on a track. I don't care. But yeah, I want to move us back in closer to the action again. Now that we're all headed off anyway.
All right, and then that was
it's a random. Thanks for the opening to just yell that.
Oh my God!
Oh man! And so the last question we have Wervango. If it came down to $35 million 10 years for Correa and 30 for 6 to 8 for the field, what is your choice?
I would probably. I don't know. It depends on the field. Like the field isn't all the same. Like, would I do 30 for 6 for? I do that for Seager and Story and Simeon, possibly, because I feel like no matter who you're signing, it's those first 6 years where you're going to get most production.
Yeah.
And I feel it might be close enough that you're not getting a huge, benefit for signing Correa. But I don't know. Just go out and get Correa. Like
just get Correa.
Have it. Yeah, have it be your Pudge. It's the Pudge moment, right? Just go out and show everyone.
Years since he was 21. Excuse me. He's got experience.
No.
He knows what he's doing.
You got to win. You got to win the Korean War here.
Yeah, there you go. Just get them. Show baseball that you're coming back.
I just wanted to share that Rick Porcello made $120,144,704 in his career. So wherever he is, he's just got a big smile on his face, and he's probably in a nice house.
Yeah.
So
my sister still has a crush on him. Yeah, this guy's living large, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely.
What is he? How old is he now? 30. He's 31 still.
Yeah,
that's
only 31. Wow.
Yeah, he could come back. He could pitch another 10 years if he wanted to. But
I would say he comes back and he probably takes. How much money do you think they'll pay Rick Porcello to pitch this year? Someone's signing him. So how much they paying him?
Oh, man, $8 million, $10 million.
Yeah, I agree.
He looks good. Yeah, he could get like maybe even 2 years, $8 to $10 million.
I want to tell you. If you people could see, first of all, Chris got a haircut and he looks so handsome. It's amazing how good he looks.
It's that COVID pallor too. Like a sickly pallor.
Yeah. The claiming COVID face.
And he's just had so many gem statements tonight. It's like the COVID cleared them out or something.
Yeah.
But it's. But,
Well, I remember wanting Porcello last year because he was a guy kind of like Rodriguez who put up really the surface level stats were really ugly, but under the hood it looked okay.
One thing you can count on Rick Porcello for is he's going to make 32 starts and he's going to pitch 175 innings. So, I mean, there are worse guys you could spend some money on than Rick Porcello. It's so, but yeah, I think you forget that. Rick, how about Rick Porcello?
Junis,
yeah, I'm not a big Jake Junis fan.
Well, I'm not either. That's a guy I would like to just stick with better and expect that he would be better. But yeah, I'm just thinking bargain bin because I'm not, I don't want to pay Anthony DeSclafani now. I wanted to pay him.
I would rather pay Willie Peralta $4 million than do Jacob Junis.
I like John Gray. I mean, I wrote up John Gray too. I mean, I do like him. I don't know if there's that much more meat on the bone there, I think is the question. But there's some.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. And again, hopefully everything gets wrapped up. So this, by the way, is our final show until a signing happens. So we're going to take Thanksgiving off. But for example, if they Tigers sign Carlos Correa tomorrow, if that would be the case, we'd come out here real quick and do a show. But again, I hope not, because to be honest with you folks, I think it's long overdue. We get a nice little break for a couple weeks and get back in charge. And again, if there's no baseball in December, you might get best of. You actually, people here on YouTube, we're getting more audience interaction for our Patreon subscribers. For everybody on YouTube, if there's no baseball in December and the CBA is totally locked up everything, what would you like us to talk about? If you still want us to do a show every week, every 2 weeks, let us know. Feedback, the better. Honestly, right now I just want to enjoy Thanksgiving with my family, and I know everybody does. We've done a lot. There's some Ryan Kryler video coming out here in a couple days. We still have to do Chris about that, so we're going to do Erie and then Toledo to end it out. But thank you for everybody who participated tonight. Again, once again, thank you again to a Pros Pro, David LewAllen of Channel 7 of Detroit. I mean, we have a lot of people out of state, and
cool.
He was the man. He was awesome, and it was just weird to see somebody that I grew up with him. And what's funny is I remember Don Shane's stunts. Do you guys remember that?
I don't remember. I think we were a Channel 4 household growing up, actually.
Oh, really?
I think that was a Bernie Smilovitz. Yeah.
I was teasing Raj, but I remember Davey Lou when he used to be working, doing a sports call-in show when there were no sports call-in shows on WJR in like 1982.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Davey Lou's got a long, great history as a sports guy. Really does. It's pretty amazing what a great transition he's made, but he was a hell of a good sports guy.
Yeah. I just appreciate him sitting there politely.
Yeah, he was the sharpest dressed host guest we've ever had. And
he brought fire tonight. He didn't hold back on anything.
Yeah. It's awesome. So again, thanks for everybody so much. We appreciate it. Scott, happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to Jake.
Thanks,
Christopher, thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Brandon. Thank you.
I like this title right here by Warvago. Chris looks presentable, spectacular.
Is that Keenan?
No.
That's Warvago.
More vivacious. I don't know. Maybe it's the hair. I don't know.
I look more not tenacious.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the high ceiling. So I don't know. But Uper, thanks again for coming on and helping us out this year.
You bet.
And we really appreciate it. Plan on tomorrow. Okay, if this is the case, then until something big happens, we'll see you next time. Have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Good night.